Read all winter with Elizabeth, Kay, and Alex.
Elizabeth's Top Books of 2020. Number 1. One by One by Ruth Ware. Getting snowed in at a beautiful, rustic mountain chalet doesn't sound like the worst problem in the world, especially when there's a breathtaking vista, a cozy fire, and a company to keep you warm. But what happens when that company is 8 of your coworkers, and you can't trust any of them? When an off-site company retreat meant to promote mindfulness and collaboration goes utterly wrong when an avalanche hits, the corporate food chain becomes irrelevant and survival trumps togetherness. Come Monday morning, how many members short will the team be?
Number 2. The Woman in the Dark by Vanessa Savage. A debut psychological thriller about a woman who moves with her family to the Gothic seaside house where her husband grew up and where 15 years ago another family was brutally slaughtered. Sarah and Patrick are happy. But after her mother's death, Sarah spirals into depression and overdoses on sleeping pills. While Sarah claims it was an accident, her teenage children aren't so sure. Patrick decides they all need a fresh start, and he knows just the place, since the idyllic family home where he was raised has recently come up for sale. There's only one catch. For the past 15 years, it has become infamous as the murder house, standing empty after a family was stabbed to death within its walls. Patrick believes they can bring the house back to its former glory, so Sarah, uprooted from everything she knows, pours her energy into painting, gardening, and giving the rotting old structure the warmth of home. But with locals hinting that the house is haunted, the news that the murderer has been paroled, strange writing on the walls, and creepy gifts arriving on the doorstep at odd hours, Sarah can't shake the feeling that something just isn't right. Not with the house, not with the town, or even with her own loving husband, whose stories about his perfect childhood suddenly aren't adding up. Can Sarah uncover the secrets of the murder house before another family is destroyed?
Number 3. The Guest List by Lucy Foley. The bride, the plus one, the best man, the wedding planner, the bridesmaid, the body. On an island off the coast of Ireland, guests gather to celebrate 2 people joining their lives together as one. The groom, handsome and charming, a rising television star. The bride, smart and ambitious, a magazine publisher. It's a wedding for a magazine, or for a celebrity. The designer dress, the remote location, the luxe party favors, the boutique whiskey, the cell phone service may be spotty and the waves may be rough, but every detail has been expertly planned and will be expertly executed. But perfection is for plans, and people are all too human. As the champagne is popped and the festivities begin, resentment and petty jealousy begin to mingle with the reminiscences and well wishes. The groomsmen begin the drinking game from their school days. The bridesmaid not so accidentally ruins her dress. The bride's oldest, male, friend gives an uncomfortable caring toast. And then someone turns up dead, who didn't wish the happy couple well, and perhaps more importantly, why?
Number 4. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Feyre's survival rests upon her ability to hunt and kill. The forest where she lives is a cold, bleak place in the long winter months. So she spots a deer in the forest being pursued by a wolf. She cannot resist fighting it for the flesh. But to do so, she must kill the predator, and killing something so precious comes at a price. Dragged into a magical kingdom for the murder of a fairy, Feyre discovers that her captor, his face obscured by a jeweled mask, is hiding far more than his piercing green eyes would suggest. Feyre's presence at the court is closely guarded, and as she begins to learn why, her feelings for him turn from hostility to passion, and the fairylands become an even more dangerous place. Feyre must fight to break an ancient curse, or she will lose him forever.
Number 5. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. The Silent Patient is a shocking psychological thriller of a woman's act of violence against her husband, and of the therapist obsessed with uncovering her motive. Alicia Berenson's life is seemingly perfect. A famous painter married to an in-demand fashion photographer. She lives in a grand house with big windows overlooking a park in one of London's most desirable areas. One evening, her husband Gabriel returns home late from a fashion shoot, and Alicia shoots him 5 times in the face and then never speaks another word. Alicia's refusal to talk or give any kind of explanation turns a domestic tragedy into something far grander, a mystery that captures the public imagination and casts Alicia into notoriety. The price of her art skyrockets, and she, the silent patient, is hidden away from the tabloids and spotlight at the Grove, a secure forensic unit in North London. Theo Faber is a criminal psychotherapist who has waited a long time for the opportunity to work with Alicia. His determination to get her to talk and unravel the mystery of why she shot her husband takes him down a twisting path into his own motivations, a search for the truth that threatens to consume him.
Number 6. The Splendid and the Vile. A Saga of Churchill, Family, and Defiance During the Blitz by Erik Larson. On Winston Churchill's first day as Prime Minister, Adolf Hitler invaded Holland and Belgium. Poland and Czechoslovakia had already fallen, and the Dunkirk evacuation was just 2 weeks away. For the next 12 months, Hitler would wage a relentless bombing campaign, killing 45,000 Britons. It was up to Churchill to hold his country together and persuade President Franklin Roosevelt that Britain was a worthy ally and willing to fight to the end. In The Splendid and the Vile, Erik Larson shows how Churchill taught the British people the art of being fearless. It is a story of political brinkmanship, but it's also an intimate domestic drama, set against the backdrop of Churchill's prime, ministerial country home, Chequers, his wartime retreat, Ditchley, where he and his entourage would go when the moon is brightest and the bombing threat is highest, and of course 10 Downing Street in London. Drawing on diaries, original archival documents, and once secret intelligence reports, some released only recently, Larson provides a new lens on London's darkest year through the day-to-day experience of Churchill and his family, his wife Clementine, their youngest daughter Mary, who chafes against her parents' wartime protectiveness, their son Randolph, and his beautiful unhappy wife, Pamela, Pamela's illicit lover, a dashing American emissary, and the advisors in Churchill's secret circle, to whom he turns in the hardest moments.
Book 7, Camino Island, by John Grisham. A gang of thieves stage a daring heist from a secure vault deep below Princeton University's Firestone Library. Their loot is priceless, but Princeton has insured it for $25 million. Bruce Cable owns a popular bookstore in the sleepy resort town of Santa Rosa on Camino Island in Florida. He makes his real money, though, as a prominent dealer in rare books. Very few people know that he occasionally dabbles in the black market of stolen books and manuscripts. Mercer Mann is a young novelist with a severe case of writer's block who has recently been laid off from her teaching position. She is approached by an elegant, mysterious woman working for an even more mysterious company. A generous offer of money convinces Mercer to go undercover and infiltrate Bruce Cable's circle of literary friends, ideally getting close enough to him to learn his secrets. But eventually, Mercer learns far too much, and there's trouble in paradise as only John Grisham can deliver it.
Number 8. The Little Shop of Found Things by Paula Braxton. A new series about a young woman whose connection to antiques takes her on a magical adventure, reminiscent of Outlander. New York Times best-selling author of The Witch's Daughter, Paula Braxton returns to her trademark blend of magic and romance to launch a new series guaranteed to enchant her audience even more. Xanth and her mother Flora leave London behind for a fresh start, taking over an antique shop in the historic town of Marlborough. Xanth has always had an affinity with some of the antiques she finds. When she touches them, she can sense something of the past they come from and the stories they hold. So, when she has an intense connection to a beautiful silver chatelaine, she has to know more. It's while she's examining the chatelaine that she's transported back to the 17th century, and shortly after, she's confronted by a ghost who reveals that this is where the antique has its origin. The ghost tasks Xanth with putting right the injustice in its story to save an innocent girl's life, or else it'll cost her Flora's. While Xanth fights to save her amid the turbulent days of 1605, she meets architect Samuel Appleby. He may be the person who can help her succeed. He may also be the reason she can't bring herself to leave. With its rich historical detail, strong mother-daughter relationship, and picturesque English village, The Little Shop of Found Things is poised to be a strong start to this new series.
Number 9. The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackwith. In the first book in a brilliant new fantasy series, books that aren't finished by their authors reside in the Library of the Unwritten in Hell, and it is up to the librarian to track down any restless characters who emerge from those unfinished stories. Many years ago, Claire was named head librarian of the Unwritten Wing, a neutral space in Hell where all the stories unfinished by their authors reside. Her job consists mainly of repairing and organizing books, but also of keeping an eye on restless stories that risk materializing as characters and escaping the library. When a hero escapes from his book and goes in search of his author, Claire must track and capture him with the help of former muse and current assistant Brevity and nervous demon courier Leto. But what should have been a simple retrieval goes horrifyingly wrong when the terrifyingly angelic Ramiel attacks them, convinced that they hold the Devil's Bible. The text of the Devil's Bible is a powerful weapon in the power struggle between heaven and hell, so it falls to the librarians to find a book with the power to reshape the boundaries between heaven, hell, and earth. K's top books of 2020.
Number 1. Murder Goes Mumming by Alyssa Craig. A house party, a jolly crowd, and a double murder. Everyone called it a blessing that old Granny Condrike died so peacefully in her sleep at Christmas time, and the whole family agreed to go ahead with the holiday festivities at Grayling's, the isolated ancestral mansion on the cliffs outlooking Bay Chaleur. But while the Yule log burned, speeding cheer and warmth, and the house guests dressed up for a merry mumming parade through the ancient halls, someone was planning a murder. Another murder, that is, since a Detective Inspector Madoc Rice already knows that Granny didn't go gentle into that good night. And before the snowy evening was over, a killer might give death a second Christmas corpse. Kay says, this is a holiday whodunit that features Canadian Mountie Madoc Rice and his bride-to-be, Janet Wadman, who are invited to spend Christmas at Grayling's, the ancestral home of Janet's boss.
Number 2. All the President's Men. The book is about two journalists who investigated the June 1972 break-in at the Watergate office building and the resultant political scandal for the Washington Post. Kay says, it never hurts to revisit history, and no one tells the Watergate story more effectively than the Washington Post reporter team of Woodward and Bernstein.
Number 3. All the Devils Are Here by Louise Penny. The 16th novel by number 1 best-selling author Louise Penny finds Chief Inspector Armand investigating the sinister plot in the City of Light. On their first night in Paris, they gather as a family for a bistro dinner with Armand's godfather, the billionaire Stephen Horowitz. Walking home together after a meal, they watch in horror as Stephen is knocked down and critically injured in what he knows is no accident, but a deliberate attempt on the elderly man's life. When a strange key is found in Stephen's possession, it sends Armand, his wife, and his former second-in-command to the bowels of Paris, from luxury hotels to odd-coded works of art. It sends them deep into the secrets Armand's godfather has kept for decades. A gruesome discovery in Stephen's Paris apartment makes it clear the secrets are more rancid, the danger far greater, and more imminent than they realized. Soon the whole family is caught up in a web of lies and deceit. In order to find the truth, Armand will have to decide whether he can trust his friends, his colleagues, his instincts, his own past, his own family. For even the City of Light casts long shadows, and in that darkness, devils hide. Kay says, Inspector Armand and his wife head to Paris for the birth of their granddaughter, but things get complicated when Armand's godfather is struck by a hit-and-run driver.
Book 4, The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. In a peaceful retirement village, 4 unlikely friends meet weekly in the Jigsaw Room to discuss unsolved crimes. Together they call themselves the Thursday Murder Club. Elizabeth, Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron might be pushing 80, but they still have a few tricks up their sleeves. When a local developer is found dead with a mysterious photograph left next to the body, the Thursday Murder Club suddenly finds themselves in the middle of their first live case. As the bodies begin to pile up, can our unorthodox but brilliant gang catch the killer before it's too late? Kay says, a group of 4 seniors meet weekly to review cold murder cases. When an actual murderer lands in their laps, they rise to the occasion, the first of what I expect to be a series.
Number 5, Squeeze Me by Carl Hiaasen. From the best-selling author of Skinny Dip and Razor Girl, a new novel that captures the Trump era with Hiaasen's inimitable savage humor and wonderful, eccentric characters, a surefire bestseller. Carl Hiaasen's Squeeze Me is set among the landed gentry of Palm Beach, a prominent high society matron who happens to be a fierce supporter of the president and founding member of the Podestacies, has gone missing at a swank gala when the wealthy dowager, Kiki Pugh Fitzsimmons, is later found dead in a concrete grave. Panic and chaos erupt. The president immediately declares that Kiki Pugh was the victim of rampaging immigrant hordes. This, as it turns out, is far from the truth. Meanwhile, a bizarre discovery in the middle of the road brings the First Lady's motorcade to a grinding halt, followed by some grinding between the First Lady and a love-struck Secret Service agent. Enter Angie Armstrong, wildlife wrangler extraordinaire, who arrives at her own conclusions after she is summoned to the posh island to deal with a mysterious and impolite influx of huge, hungry pythons. Completely of the moment, full of vim and vigor, and as irreverent as can be, Squeeze Me is pure, unadulterated Hiaasen. Kay says, if you're looking for offbeat humor, you can't beat Hiaasen. This is a laugh-out-loud mystery. When a wealthy dowager goes missing, was her disappearance caused by hordes of rampaging immigrants, as the president suggests, or is there another reason?
Book 6, Mystery in White by J. Jefferson Fargion. On Christmas Eve, heavy snowfall brings a train to a halt near the village of Hemmersby. Several passengers take shelter in a deserted country house where the fire has been lit and the table laid for tea, but no one is at home. Trapped together for Christmas, the passengers are seeking to unravel the secrets of the empty house when a murderer strikes in their midst. Kay says, when a blizzard derails their plans, several passengers depart the train to make their way to another depot. Caught in the storm, they find shelter in a mansion that appears ready to entertain guests. But where are the people?
Number 7, The Order by Daniel Silva. From Daniel Silva, author of the #1 New York Times bestsellers The New Girl and The Other Woman, comes a stunning new action-packed thriller of high-stakes international intrigue featuring the art restorer and master spy, Gabriel Allon. Master of the spy thriller Silva has entertained readers with 22 thoughtful and gripping suspense novels, featuring a diverse cast of compelling characters and ingenious plots that have taken them around the globe and back, from the United States to Europe, Russia to the Middle East. He returns with another blockbuster, a powerhouse novel that showcases his outstanding skill and brilliant imagination, destined to be a must-read for both his multitudes of fans and a growing legion of converts. Kay says, if you're looking for a cloak and dagger story, you can't go wrong with Silva. He publishes a book a year, and this is one of the best.
Number 8, 1222 by Anne Holt. This is the story of how a small group of people find themselves stuck in a hotel during an apocalyptic snowstorm. Following a dramatic train derailment at Finza, the conflict between the survivors escalates while a furious hurricane threatens the unprotected village. Nobody's there to help, and there's no way out of the inferno for the survivors hiding out. On the first night at the hotel, a man is found shot and murdered. The victim is Cato Hammer, a priest known nationwide for his ability and desire to get into the papers. Hannah Williamson, retired inspector of the Oslo Police, is drawn into a race against time, a murderer and the worst storm in the Norwegian Alps on record. She loses the first round. Soon, another one of God's servants is murdered, when an icicle cuts through his body. Kay says, "This is another train caught in a blizzard murder that features Hannah Williamson, a retired police inspector who left her job after being shot and paralyzed from the waist down. She is in foul spirits and just wants to be left alone, but finds herself in a hotel surrounded by strangers to ride out an unprecedented storm. She has to step up when the bodies start appearing."
Number 9. The Fleet Street Murders. Book number 3 in the Charles Lennox books by Charles Finch. The Fleet Street Murders is a mystery set in London and in northern England in 1867 during the Victorian era. While gentleman and amateur detective Charles Lennox is celebrating his engagement to his best friend and neighbor Lady Jane Grey, 2 journalists are murdered simultaneously across London. Lennox starts to involve himself in this strange case, despite hostility from Scotland Yard, but soon must leave it behind to travel to Sturrington in northern England, where he is running for a seat in Parliament. Once at Sturrington, he has to overcome local suspicion of an outsider, and faces a shock when Lady Jane sends him a letter casting doubt on their upcoming marriage. Meanwhile, in London, the police have arrested 2 unlikely suspects. Lennox races back and forth between London and Sturrington to solve the crime, face the results of the election, and save his imperiled engagement. In the process, he discovers that the culprit is an old nemesis. Kay says, "These 19th century period mysteries are well done. Finch is a graceful writer that creates more than a whodunit. There are 14 books in the series. It's best to read them in order, because the books feature a core of characters that appear in each story. Favorites are The Fleet Street Murders, A Death in Small Hours, Home by Nightfall, and The Last Passenger."
Number 10. Murder at Melrose Court by Karen Ba Menhunen. Downton Abbey meets Agatha Christie with a touch of Wodehouse and a dog of distinction. It's 1920 and Christmas is coming. Major Leno finds a body on his doorstep. Why on his doorstep? Was it to do with the Countess? Was it about the ruby necklace? Leno must go to Melrose Court, home to his uncle, Lord Melrose, to uncover the mystery. But then the murders start, and it snows, and suddenly everything becomes very complicated. Kay says, "This is the first in a series of 5 books featuring Major Leno. The first takes place at Christmas. He heads to Melrose Court, home of his uncle. When the murders and snow begin to stack up, the culprit appears to be Major Leno. He has to solve the mystery to save himself. This series has been described as a Agatha Christie with a touch of Wodehouse. Very entertaining." Alex's Top 10 Kids Books. The Little Blue Truck series by Alice Schertle.
Hello, Ninja by N.D. Wilson.
There's a Monster in Your Book by Tom Fletcher.
Pete the Cat by Eric Litwin.
Thomas the Train Books.
The Berenstein Bear series by Stan and Jan Berenstein.
Goodnight Moon.
Go Dogs Go by P.D. Eastman.
Chicka Chicka Boom Boom.
The Tiger Who Came to Tea by Judith Kerr.